Thank you, Presiding Officer. At the outset of my contribution, I want to be clear that men need to do better. There is no excuse for violence against women and girls, and as the statistics show, the main perpetrators are men. In the past, some considered it to be normal to be violent against women and girls, and some would consider the so-called good old days when aspects of life were allegedly better than today. Now, those so-called good old days will have seen more deprivation, more children being failed at school because of an undiagnosed additional support need, and more women being denied opportunities because the place was at home. There are many other examples I'm sure colleagues from across the chamber could also name. Sadly, however, too many men associate gender-based violence with masculinity and being macho. There is absolutely nothing macho about being a bully. Going back to the motion before us today, it mentions national and local efforts. And whilst we can all agree that this is a global issue, it's important to consider how actions at different levels can affect positive change. At the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association conferences, there's consistently been a workshop dedicated to this particular issue, and some of the testimonies heard by delegates have been horrendous and sobering. Different countries have different cultures and considerations about women and girls. However, how these are dealt with vary, including how they are policed. At the recent conference in October, an MP from South Africa highlighted that in the rural border areas between South Africa and Mozambique and Swaziland, domestic abuse is sadly commonplace. It's not always reported to the police, and on many occasions the perpetrator will go back home before being caught and dealt with. So I therefore want to reflect on Tess White's amendment, which states that reported crimes against women and girls in Scotland are rising. It's always a concern to see crimes rising, but in this instance, I believe that this shows that more women and girls feel empowered to come forward to report these attacks. On one hand, this demonstrates why we need to keep challenging gender-based violence, but if more perpetrators are caught and dealt with, then this is also positive. Now, turning to the Ash Regan's amendment, which obviously isn't up for voting later, I don't disagree at all with the sentiment of Ash Regan's bill, but it is going through the parliamentary process, and I do await the report from the Criminal Justice Committee on the Stage 1 considerations. And I thought the recent correspondence from the Swedish Police was actually very useful for what she's actually trying to achieve. Now, Maggie Chapman's amendment, also which isn't up for voting later, highlights the problems with, and I quote, toxic masculinity and the need to take concerted action on misogynistic behaviour online, and calling for plans to, and I quote, tackle online violence are developed as part of the next refresh for Equally Safe. I wholeheartedly agree with Maggie Chapman on these points, but, Presiding Officer, social media is pervasive, and it's been used to spread toxic masculine ideals en masse by bad actors who use these platforms to influence young and impressionable boys or adult males who, quite frankly, should know better. Now, members will know that I keep my private life very private and I very rarely mention my family in Parliament. But for the sake of today's debate, I want to reflect on being a father of 2 daughters. Now, my wife and I have raised them to stand up for themselves, take no nonsense from anyone, and to be careful when they go out. And if they see any signs of trouble, just get away. But I'm sure that every parent in the chamber has probably done the same. I want my daughters to love life and savour every moment because it really is precious. Now, keeping themselves safe is an essential part of that, particularly online. However, I'm also conscious that the messages that we tell our kids shouldn't be gendered. If we only teach girls how to keep themselves safe, but don't teach boys the same, choosing to brush off violent misogynistic behaviour as boys being boys, then we face a losing battle, and we're doing women and girls a huge disservice. Now, fundamentally, there is no easy answer and there is no quick fix, because if there was, it would have been done by now. However, educating children about how to be kind to one another, to be respectful and to look out for each other regardless of the differences, it goes a long way to actually helping improve society. Now, many people will respond to that by saying that this already happens, but it's not just about teaching this to our kids when they're young. It's also about making sure that we as adults reflect the message in our behaviour, and that we repeat this message as they grow older. Now, toxic masculinity harms boys and men, as well as women and girls. Education, and helping young boys and men away from it is absolutely essential. So the education point in this wider debate is really crucial in this. Now, in closing, I actually want to implore to every man in the chamber and every male who is watching this or reads the official report at some point in the future to actually challenge these attitudes that this chamber has been discussing this afternoon. Challenge the attitudes and the behaviours when we hear or see them. Not just during the 16 days of activism, but for every single day of the year. Failure to do so will only make us complicit. Thank you.
Thank you.